Breaking news right now. We continue to follow new developments in that deadly midair collision near D.C.'s Reagan Airport. There is a press conference happening right now at the Boston Skate Club. Let's listen in.
And last night and into this morning, we were informed of a pretty horrific tragedy. To the best of our knowledge, 14 skaters returning home from the National Development Camp at Wichita, Kansas, put on by U.S. Figure Skating, were lost in the plane crash at Washington, D.C. Of those 14 skaters, 6 were from the Skating Club of Boston. 2 coaches, 2 teenage athletes, and the athletes' moms. Skating is a very close and tight-knit community. These kids and their parents, they're here at our facility in Norwood 6, sometimes 7 days a week. It's a close, tight bond, and I think for all of us, we have lost family. We sent here at this club 18 skaters to Wichita to compete at the U.S. Championships, and 12 skaters were at the National Development Camp. 6 is a horrific number for us, but we're fortunate and grateful it wasn't more than 6. This will have long-reaching impacts for our skating community. The 2 coaches, Zhenya Shishkova and Vadim Nomov, top coaches. They were the 1994 World Pair Champions, and they came to us in 2017 and were very much a part of our building the competitive skating program here at the Skating Club of Boston, originating a group class, Tomorrow's Champions, subscription-based, very innovative in the U.S. and based on what they learned and how they developed in St. Petersburg, Russia. Very popular with families, proven success, which is why I think they had so many kids at the championships and at the National Development Camp. So it's a major personal loss, but it's also a loss to our skating community. I think the final thing I want to say that sadly this isn't the first time this club has experienced a tragedy like this. It's now a ways back, but in 1961, the entire world team of U.S. figure skating en route to the World Championships in Prague was lost in a plane crash in Belgium. Almost half of everybody on board that plane were from this club. It had long-reaching implications for the skating club and for the sport in this country, because when you lose coaches like this, you lose the future of the sport as well. It's been a long time in redeveloping it. And I personally feel that this club, the Skating Club of Boston, has just now, almost 60 years later, been coming out of the shadow of that 1961 crash. So this is particularly devastating.
Doug, Vadim and Zhenya were married.
Yes.
They have a son named Max. Can you tell us about him and about how he got out and was not on that plane?
So Max was competing at the U.S. Championships in the senior men's event, Championship Men. He placed 4th, which is a medaling spot. And his time in Wichita concluded on Sunday with the men's event. He was actually on a plane on Monday. I came back with him. He had no reason to stay at the National Development Camp. Both of his parents were with him while he was competing. It's well known, Mom was always too nervous to watch him skate. But his dad was with him, and Dad was in the kiss and cry, sharing his great performance. And Max, I don't know what his next steps are for competition, but he was planned to compete in the 4 Continents Championship after next week. And then he is a first or second alternate to the World Championships, which we're hosting at TD Garden at the end of March 25th through 30th. So, and Max has been with us since 2017 as well. Well-decorated skater, novice men's champion, junior men's champion, 2-time championship men medalist. Very close with his parents, obviously.
As far as you know, he's flown to Washington?
Yeah, the best of my knowledge, Max is en route to Washington, along with the dads of Spencer and Gina.
Did any of the members here have a reason to fly to D.C., or is it your understanding they were eventually supposed to come to Boston?
I believe they were all en route back to Boston. There's no direct flights between Boston and Wichita, having worked on that one myself, so you have to connect.
Describe the nature of the competition. So essentially, Spencer and Gina were, I mean, they were in the biggest part of that competition. They were there the last day, right?
So they were in the camp. So the camp follows the competition. It's for younger skaters that have been identified with promise by U.S. Figure Skating's High Development Committee Department, if you will. So U.S. Figure Skating was looking to everybody in that High Development, National Development camp as the future of the sport. So they weren't competing at the U.S. Championships because they were at the novice level. U.S. Championships is for junior and senior only.
Can you tell us
Please give us a
anything about
biography of the
Spencer?
victims.
What was that?
Tell us the names of each victim, how old they were, what their role was.
Spencer Lane and his mom, Molly. Spencer is about 16, I think, I believe, turning 17 early next year. Gina Hahn, about the same age, and her mom, Jin. And then Vadim and Jenya, the coaches that we already talked about.
Can
you
you
have
tell
any
me,
memories?
talk about Spencer and Gina, based on what you just said about their skill level. Were they leaders around here?
Definitely, very much. And I would say both families very much embedded in our community, just for the sheer amount of time they're here. And, you know, personally, I'll just say wonderful people.
And the
Any
younger
memories
skaters
of either
here?
Spencer or Gina here skating at the club or talking to them?
Spencer, in the best way possible, was a crazy kid, highly talented, like incredibly talented, has not been skating that long and just rocketing to the top of the sport. Very fun, very cerebral, a good thinker. Sorry about my Boston accent. Gina, just a wonderful kid, wonderful parents, great athlete, great competitor, loved by all.
You talked to the fathers. How was that conversation like? When did you talk to them and just kind of walk me through?
I have not spoken to the dads.
Okay, you haven't spoken to any. Okay. How did you
No,
find
I have spoken to folks that were with the dads. And I can say when this story started to break and the news of this came out last night, it was a long night for us all, just trying to get accurate information. Who was on the plane, who wasn't on the plane, where are the dads, are there any survivors, that sort of thing.
We've seen some people, presumably skaters, show up this morning. How are other people who belong to the club processing this information?
I think a lot are trying to process it. Some of our older members have written me referencing the 1961 plane crash because that's clearly a reference point for them, having lived through it. I think our current members, leaders, management team, I don't know what the word is. Is it wrecked? Is it devastated? Folks are just stunned by this. My phone is just blowing up with emails and texts of folks, offering to support in any way they can, expressing condolences, and just how stunned they are by it.
Could you tell us what's next for the club immediately? Like, are you guys going to be open this week? What are the next steps here?
That's a good question. I haven't thought that far. I would assume we will be open just because skaters are resilient and they want to skate. I think also they come to the club and will come to the club as an opportunity to come together and to grieve together. There's never, ever a good time for a tragedy like this, but we're a small organization. We have a large facility. We're also the local host for the World Championships coming up at the end of March. So we're pretty busy and we can't take a break. We need to keep moving.
How did you rebuild after the last crash, and how do you see yourselves rebuilding after this?
You rebuild over time. It's too soon to say, but obviously we have a hole in our coaching staff, a giant hole left by Vadim and Jenya. I'm not quite sure how we're going to fill that.
Doug, given how safe air travel is in the world, and the fact that your club has been personally impacted now by two tragedies, 1961 and 2025, does it strike you as bad luck, or what can you take away from that?
It strikes me as life. It's senseless, but accidents happen. I think for me personally, I'd rather have something like this happen in an accident than a terrorist activity or something, where somebody was deliberately trying to cause harm. It somehow makes it easier to accept that it was an accident.
How do you think that the club will remember the victims in the coming days?
Well, I don't think we're ever going to forget them. That is certain. How we commemorate them here, we haven't gotten to that point to discuss, but we certainly will. Just definitely very important and well-loved members of our community.
What went through your mind as you processed the initial information about the crash?
What went through my mind? It was, the biggest thing was, how can we get accurate information? At one point, we thought we had 12 skaters that were on, 12 skaters and their families. Then it was 8 to 10. And now, I mean, it sounds crazy to be relieved. Oh my gosh, it's only 6. But in some ways, I am relieved it's only 6. But it's a devastating 6.
I was wondering if you could, I know we spent time talking about the 2 skaters, but had you ever run into Molly? Had you ever run into Jen and kind of just talk about a little bit about them as well?
Yes, definitely. In Wichita, spent time with them. So dedicated moms, making sacrifices. The Lanes lived in Providence, or I should say Rhode Island, outside of Providence. Spent a lot of time commuting, a real commitment to be here for Spencer to skate. As I said, Spencer was a pretty young phenom, has only been with the sport a couple of years, and we're just rocketing to the top. And his parents were working to support that. The Hahn family has been with us for a while, certainly since we opened this facility in September of 2020. And they are definitely a member of family. And I would say Jin, one of the most wonderful, pleasant, polite, smiling, just fantastic member of the club. Never a discouraging word, always appreciative, always supportive of not just Gina, her daughter, but every athlete. Just role model parents in youth sport, and you don't always get that, right? And I will say our kids compete hard on the ice against each other, but when they step off the ice, it's a pretty tight-knit group. The parents as well.
Were these kids also from Norwood or in the area?
Max was from Norwood. I forget the town where Gina and her mom live, nearby.
And Spencer?
Spencer was Rhode Island.
Do they practice so much? Are they able to go to high school, or do they end up maybe doing some
They
other...
do a mix of high school and homeschool. I believe Gina was homeschooled, and I believe Spencer was in school. Other questions?
Thank you so much.
What else should we know about this incident?
I don't know what to say to that. Information is still breaking. I mean, I think we've given you everything we know. It's obviously a very emotional thing for us because, as I said, they are like family to us. And the 2 dads remaining, I haven't spoken to them yet, but there's no doubt they're devastated. I know Max, obviously devastated, and skaters here at the club, senior level skaters, had all traveled to be with him last night as more information was breaking. I think if you look for a silver lining in something that's horrible, it's to see the humanity of how folks come together to support those that were directly affected by that. And that really is heartwarming and encouraging.
Sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate, seriously, your interest in these families and these kids. Courtney is your point of contact moving forward. I'm available for whatever. Maybe as more information comes in, that sort of thing.
Jenya and Vadim, I assume you must have spoken to them many times.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Do you have any memory that really sticks out of the 2 of them, or something about them?
Vadim, I would describe as an old school coach. I grew up in the St. Petersburg, Russia School of Skating, which produced many, many champions. I think he was a good role model for our kids here. Loved young kids, but he was also a firm disciplinarian, and not in a punishment way by any means, but in boundaries and training, and he made the kids keep to the proper standards. Very much in a Russian method, which, Russian method can be argued produces more champions because it is so strict. Great folks, great sense of humor. Jenya, if you don't know, pair skaters, the women in a pair team are incredibly tough. They have to look, like they're making it easy. They're getting chucked through the air, they're getting tossed up in the air, and their job is to land on one foot, make it look easy, always be pretty, but they are tough. And Jenya was incredibly resilient, and I think just a fabulous addition to this community. You couldn't see Jenya and not just break into a smile.
Have they known each other since they were children?
I think so, yes, training together, but I think their romance came later in life.
How did they end up here, and why did they end up here?
They were in a training camp in Connecticut, and we sought them out to build the coaching in our own program. That was a deliberate move, so we sort of stole them from Connecticut.
How tough was it to convince them to move?
It wasn't impossible, but we made it work for them. We made it work for them, and they've no regrets. I'm just going to miss them terribly.